This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alex Masford. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode and to be continuing to listen to the show. If you are a returning listener, we really do appreciate you. Before I start talking anything sports, I want to remind you all of a couple of things. First, please subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcasting app or website you are listening to this on. To do that, you can just go to our homepage and hit the subscribe button. If you're on Apple Podcasts, it'll be in the top right-hand corner with next to that plus sign that says subscribe. You want to subscribe to the podcast for a couple of reasons, but the main one being you get those alerts and those notifications on your phone, on your laptop, on your watch, on whatever you may be listening to this episode on, and you can always know when we drop a new episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast here at the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, please subscribe to the podcast so you can get those alerts and notifications, and that way you can never miss an episode and be one of the first people to listen to a new episode when we release it. Again, please subscribe to the podcast. We'd also really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review or just a positive review on that same podcasting app or website on that same device. Just to give us a boost of confidence, to let us know that you guys are enjoying the content and discussion points and the structure of the show. And if you are, again, we would really appreciate it if you leave us a 5-star review or just a positive review in general on that same Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podbean, whatever you might be listening to this on. Again, same thing, just go to the homepage and click leave a review. That would give us a big boost of confidence. Again, it would let us know that you guys are enjoying the structure of the show and everything about it. So that would be awesome if you could. And finally, if you could follow us on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram is where you can primarily follow us. Over there, we can interact and pretty much talk about anything. Over on social media, we can talk about sports, we can talk about life, we're going to do some live tweeting of some big-time hockey games or baseball games when the season starts. Whatever it may be, all of those interaction needs can be found on social media. So again, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram is where you can primarily follow us, and we would love if you could do so. I hope wherever you are and however you may be listening, you and your family are happy and healthy during these extremely trying times in the world today. We have a fantastic show for you all today. Coming up later on in the show, I want to rank what is a completely stacked offensive weapon class. So that's talking wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs. I want to rank the top 10 offensive weapons in the 2021 NFL Draft. That, again, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, group them all into one group. Who are just the top 10 offensive weapons in this draft class? I'll be breaking that down later on in the episode. As well, at the very end of the episode, I'll be giving you my thoughts on Blake Griffin signing with the Brooklyn Nets. And also coming up later on in the show, I will be giving you my free agent perfect fit. So next week, free agency in the new league year opens up in the NFL. The franchise tag deadline has passed, so we know who's tagged, who hasn't been tagged. We know who's going to hit the open market and who's not. So I'm going to give you the best and most notable names from the guys hitting the open market on both offense and defense and give you my perfect fit / realistic fit. So I want to do a combination of who could get him and who it makes sense to go get. And we'll do all that coming up later on in the show as well. But of course, we're going to start off with the major news coming out of America's team. Dak Prescott, the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, has signed a mega dollar extension to be the Dallas Cowboys quarterback for at least the next 4 seasons. So I'm going to hit every angle of that starting right now. So finally, after probably 2 years of real negotiations, Dak Prescott finally gets the long-term contract with the Dallas Cowboys that he's been searching for over 2 years at this point. Now, the contract is a 4-year, $160 million contract with $126 million guaranteed and a $66 million signing bonus, which is an NFL record. And a couple of things can be true here because everyone is saying that somebody has to win in a landslide or whatever, and then this has to be good or bad. This doesn't necessarily have to be good or bad. It can just be okay for the Dallas Cowboys. And here's what I mean by that. The Dallas Cowboys did not want to pay Dak Prescott this much money. And I don't think any team would have paid him $42 million or $40 million annually a year. Now, two things can be true. Dak Prescott can be an awesome, close to, if not on certain nights, elite quarterback in this league. But that could also be true that Dak Prescott should not be getting paid $40 million a year and being the second highest paid quarterback in football because he's not the second best quarterback in football. And I want to know, when will guys learn? Because we see the formula to success in the NFL. There are many paths to win in the NFL, but there's one that has consistently proven to be really, really good and really, really effective if you want to have deep playoff runs and potentially Super Bowls. Get your quarterback on the cheap so you can spend the rest of your money on weapons and pass rushers. That's what happened in New England for 20 years. That's what's happening in Tampa Bay right now. Tom Brady is again restructuring and taking a pay cut. Patrick Mahomes, to a certain extent, took a team-friendly deal, and I will also talk about this with Aaron Rodgers in my next segment, but Dak Prescott has to realize that Dallas has now have, I think, between 3 and 5 players who are top 5 in their position. And I don't know if any of the guys that they are paying top 5 at their position are top 5 of their position. I don't know if Ezekiel Elliott's a top 5 running back in the league anymore. I wouldn't say he is. Amari Cooper's not a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. Dak Prescott is not a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Who else is there? DeMarcus Lawrence is not a top 5 pass rusher in the NFL. So those 4 guys are all being paid top 5 at their respective position, and not a single one of them is top 5 of their position. That is a recipe for not making the playoffs, in my opinion. Dak Prescott having this much of the cap hit. Not starting this year, to be fair, Dak Prescott's only costing the Cowboys a $22 million cap hit in this specific offseason, so they can go after some free agents, specifically on defense, so that new defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, can hopefully coach that defense up, because the Dallas Cowboys are going to be able to score points, right? Dak Prescott, in my opinion, when everything looks right, is an elite NFL quarterback. I used to say that Carson Wentz is better than him. I realize now that it appears that Dak at this moment is better, but I wouldn't cart Carson out yet. I know it was a rough year in Philadelphia last year, but he's going with Frank Wright back in Indianapolis, so I think the conversation is alive again. But as of right now, Dak Prescott's the better quarterback. And as of right now, I would consider Dak Prescott to probably be a top 12 to 10 quarterback in the NFL. But he's not top 5, and I don't even think he's top 7. So for him to be paid $40 million annually, and I understand that everyone's going to say, oh, whatever, well, in 3 years, it's not going to be all this, and in 2 years, it's not going to be all this. You know, guys like Allen are going to get paid, and Lamar Jackson. That may be the case. Maybe 3 years down the line, Dak Prescott is not the second highest paid quarterback in the league. And yes, I understand because of the new TV deal that the salary cap is going to go up. But the real kicker of the salary cap, like the TV money, is interesting because everyone likes to talk about the salary cap, which has obviously been shrunk down about $15 million this year because of COVID. And then next year it'll go back up because there's a new TV deal coming in with ESPN and a bunch of these other networks. And that's all great and good. But that doesn't really kick in until 4 years from now. That's when we see a really big jump in the cap. Again, it'll increase just a little bit, which is always nice for all these teams. Whatever, it increases 5, a little bit more each and every year. And then you'll see about 4 years from now is when the real big boom from all this money is going to correlate and come all together. And then the NFL will have a huge salary cap. Guess what happens 4 years from now? Dak Prescott's contract expires with the Dallas Cowboys. So the argument that, oh, well, with the TV money, this contract won't look so bad is actually false, because when the TV money really kicks in, there's a very good chance Dak Prescott, at 30 years old, will be asking the Dallas Cowboys for another mega $1 million contract extension that will probably be worth more than $40 million a year. Now, if Dak Prescott was getting paid $40 million a year on this Dallas Cowboy team, and they weren't paying Ezekiel Elliott all the money in the world, Amari Cooper all the money in the world, DeMarcus Lawrence all the money in the world, I would tell you that this isn't as bad as it appears. But right now, Jerry Jones got swindled by Dak Prescott and his agent, and his agent deserves all the credit. Because Dak got every single thing he wanted, and he realized all the leverage that he had. Now, after Russell Wilson came out and said that he would consider a trade to the Dallas Cowboys, I thought Dak lost leverage. Because again, Russell is way better than Dak Prescott as a quarterback, and is now making a significant amount less money. I think about between $2 to $6 million less annually. But again, Jerry Jones wanted Dak Prescott to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. He is the perfect fit for them. He is not this ultra mega personality. He's a team guy. He is a leader. He is a winner, and he is respecting that locker room. And I know he's a hard worker, and he's got all the intangibles. I just don't think he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. Personally, I think Dak Prescott is worth $33 to $35 million a year. So is $5 million a year at the end of the world? Not necessarily, which is why I'm not killing the Cowboys for this deal. What I'm killing the Cowboys for is this entire messy cap situation. They paid the wrong guys at the wrong time. They shouldn't have paid Ezekiel Elliott that much money that soon, given the shelf life of a running back. DeMarcus Lawrence came off a really, really nice year. You should have, if I were the Dallas Cowboys, I would have told him to produce for another year, then pay him. And same with Amari Cooper, specifically when you were going to go, potentially wide receiver in the draft with CeeDee Lamb. So if you're the Cowboys, this is where I go from here. You've got the Dak contract figured out. That's a non-story. That's no longer a non-issue. Dak Prescott will be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys the next 4 years. I know Dak Prescott's going to put up the stats, and I know he's going to look like a great quarterback. Not sure if he'll ever live up to $40 million a year because, again, if you paid $40 million a year for a quarterback, they need to be making deep playoff runs. In my opinion, for Dak Prescott to live up to the current contract, the Dallas Cowboys have to win a minimum of a playoff game every single year. And really, they need to win 2 playoff games every single year. They really need to get to the NFC Championship game each and every year for him to live up to that contract. But to cut him some slack, win 1 playoff game each and every year. Can the Cowboys do that? For sure. Will they do that? Absolutely not. Will the Dallas Cowboys win a Super Bowl in the next 4 years with this Dak Prescott contract? Absolutely not. Because of their cap situation. They haven't handled this the right way. There's going to be nobody who can clear this cap space as well. So if the argument is, well, look at all these other teams cutting guys and trading and shedding camp, who is going to take the Ezekiel Elliott contract? Who would take the DeMarcus Lawrence contract right now? The guy that you could maybe move off of is Amari Cooper, in my opinion. You could maybe send him to a team like the Jets or like the Miami Dolphins or another team, the New England Patriots, that's looking for a star receiver for their young quarterback potentially. I could see them moving off Amari Cooper, but Ezekiel Elliott coming off the worst year of his career last year where he looked out of shape. He's only getting a year older as a running back, and his cap hit's only getting bigger. That looks like an unmovable contract unless you're adding a draft pick or an asset, which the Cowboys cannot do because, again, they need so many different holes on their defense that they can't afford to give up draft picks. If anything, they need more draft picks to fill these holes in, the defensive linemen and things like that. They still have to pay their linebackers that they love so much, apparently, like Jalen Van Der Esch and Jalen Smith, of course. And again, they can do it all, and obviously the Cowboys are a special circumstance. They have more money than anybody else because of how big their brand is and everything like that. But I want to end this segment, really, in this entire discussion about the Dak Prescott contract with a quote coming out from Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones, in today's press conference with Dak Prescott when they announced the signing of the contract, said, "Most anything that I've ever been involved in that ended up being special, I overpaid for every single time." So Jerry Jones, literally in his press conference after signing Dak Prescott to this mega $1 million contract extension, admits that he overpaid for Dak Prescott because he knows Dak Prescott is not a special quarterback. Dak Prescott is a talented quarterback, and when everything's going right, certainly looks like an elite one. But he's not a special talent. He's not a special player. There's nothing that Dak Prescott does on the football field that you would say is special. He does everything good, and a lot of things great. But he doesn't do anything special. Patrick Mahomes does a lot of things special. Russell Wilson does things that are special. Aaron Rodgers does things that are special. Tom Brady to this day at 43 is still doing things that are special. I haven't seen Dak Prescott do anything special in his last, really couple of years starting. He's 32-28 as an NFL starter. So, 4 games above 500 equals $40 million a year now when you're already paying 4 other guys top dollar money at their contract position? Again, I don't see a way that the Dallas Cowboys improve to a level of Super Bowl contention, especially in this offseason. And ironically for the Dallas Cowboys, this offseason in a COVID-capped year is the nicest year in terms of Dak's cap hit, which is not a recipe for success. So I'm happy for Dak. He deserves the money. He got tagged effectively twice now, went through hell throughout these contract negotiations, deserved the money a lot sooner. But in all honesty, the Dallas Cowboys should have paid Dak Prescott 3 years ago, before he was going to cost $40 million a year, before Patrick Mahomes signed his extension, before Aaron Rodgers signed his extension, before Russell Wilson signed his extension. When Matt Stafford was still like the 4th highest paid quarterback in the league, that's when the Dallas Cowboys should have paid Dak Prescott. But instead, they decided to prioritize Ezekiel Elliott, the running back, Amari Cooper, the wide receiver, and DeMarcus Lawrence, the defensive end, and now they are where they are. Can they improve? Sure. Does the cap hit not hurt that much this offseason for Dak Prescott? Sure. But throughout the following 4 years of Dak Prescott's contract, there's not an easy path for the Dallas Cowboys to get better. So now all the pressure's on Dak too. Well, Dak Prescott did get his money and all of his guarantees and finally the contract he deserves, and Jerry Jones literally openly admitted during his press conference that he overpaid for Dak Prescott. The pressure's on Dak to deliver for that contract because now the bar is even higher. Dak Prescott can't put up the numbers and stats that he did last year or 2 years ago for that matter. He needs to be better than he's ever been as an NFL quarterback. And I'm worried we've already seen Dak's peak that 13-3 year. I don't know if he'll ever go 13-3 again in the NFL. I just don't know he'll do that. That division's only getting better. It's obviously horrendous right now, but I like what Washington's doing. I like what the Giants are doing. Not saying that they're going to be incredible next year, but those two teams in particular are trending in the right direction with their coach in front office and their roster construction, in particular their defense. Philly's obviously a dumpster fire, so forget about them. But still, I don't know if Dallas is going to win this division next year in year one of the Dak Prescott contract, and when they still have a little bit of cap space to work with. If I were the Cowboys, I'd trade down from 10, get up some more assets, some more draft picks, go all defense, pretty much Panther-esque last year. Remember the Carolina Panthers with all of their first-round picks and seconds and thirds and fourths, all of it used defensive players. I'd have a similar type draft if I were the Dallas Cowboys. I know it's not in Jerry's nature to trade down and stay out of the top 10, but they have the 10th overall pick. Again, in my mock draft, I had them taking Micah Parsons, who's a linebacker, safety, defensive end sort of hybrid, Derwin James kind of vibes. Same with, what's his name? Isaiah Simmons out of last year, similar type player. Maybe trade down, take the Michigan defensive end, do something, get more assets, get better on defense. So when Dak Prescott is giving you 35 a game, you still find a way to win. All right, that's going to do it for this segment. On the other side of this short break, I want to break down everything Green Bay Packers situation. Aaron Jones appears that he is going to be walking in the free agent market. So is Corey Lindsey. And Levante David just signed an extension in Tampa Bay, so that was the guy that the Packers were rumored to be going after. So what are the Green Bay Packers doing with the money that they're shedding by letting Aaron Jones and Corey Lindsey walk? We'll break down all that good stuff right after this short break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, I am your host, Alex Masford. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode and to be continuing to listen to the show. If you are a returning listener, we really do appreciate you. I just finished giving you my spiel on the new Dak Prescott mega $1 million contract extension. Again, a couple of things can be true. It doesn't have to be necessarily that the Cowboys severely overpaid or that Dak isn't good enough for this contract. Again, I don't think it's the horrible deal for the Dallas Cowboys. I just think this deal on top of all the other deals that Jerry has made recently just doesn't make a lot of sense for me. And again, I don't think Dak Prescott's worth $40 million, but that doesn't mean I think he's a bad quarterback. I think he's, in fact, on his best day, looks like a pretty elite quarterback to me. But at the end of the day, it's just the money and the cap space. You have to take into consideration how much money they're already spending on other players and things like that. So, again, I would not have made this exact contract move, but if I were Dallas, I would have re-signed Dak Prescott. So I'm glad to see Dak finally get his money. He should have been paid like 3-4 years ago at this point, but it's glad to see that he'll be there for the foreseeable future for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, can they get some other guys on defense to help that incredible offense? That's a different question. I want to transition now to another team that is having some sort of money question marks / issues, and that's the Green Bay Packers. And I have my own personal theory on what they are doing with their money. And it's not based off any reports. It's not based off any sources or anything. This is just my personal speculation on where the Green Bay Packer money is going to go. So the Green Bay Packers recently have obviously not been the greatest when it comes to cap space and spending and things like that. They have two major free agents this year. One of them being Aaron Jones and the other one being Corey Lindsey. Now, they don't have a lot of cap space. They've been moving around some things, but they were in the negative. They were under the cap at a certain point. So it's unclear where their money would come from, but they did not tag either of those two guys. Now, in my head, I thought they would tag at least one of them. Not that they would necessarily bring them back, but they would trade them. But instead, they're both letting them hit the free agent market. Corey Lindsey looks like he's not coming back at all for sure. Aaron Jones could maybe come back to Green Bay at the right price, but I think that's unlikely when teams like Miami and the Jets might be handing the man a blank check, right? Same with Corey Lindsey as well. So where is the money going for the Green Bay Packers? There were some reports that they might go after a linebacker like Levante David, but he's obviously staying in Tampa Bay. So where is the money going? I have a personal theory. I think the money that Green Bay is using /saving /needs, through them letting go of Aaron Jones, who's obviously, in my opinion, a top 5 running back in the league, and Corey Lindsey, who might be the best center in the league, to really key parts of their offense is because they need to pay Aaron Rodgers again. Now, Aaron Rodgers signed an extension recently, I think within the last 2 years, that made him the highest paid quarterback in the league. Since then, things have changed. Obviously, Mahomes has signed his deal. Now, Dak has signed his deal. Russell Wilson signed his deal. And I think also Jared Goff signed his deal and gets paid more than Aaron Rodgers. But here's the thing with Aaron Rodgers. Let's take you back to a year ago this time. They go into the NFL draft. They trade up with the Miami Dolphins to go all the way up to pick, I believe, 23, for them to select Jordan Love, quarterback, Utah State. Similar situation. Everybody thought this was the Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre situation V2. But here's the problem. Aaron Rodgers' rookie year, when he did not play for the Green Bay Packers, Brett Favre didn't win an MVP and have the season that Aaron Rodgers just had. So Aaron Rodgers, after being disrespected by the Green Bay Packers, them selecting a quarterback, in my opinion, is telling the Green Bay Packers, it's time that you do what I want you to do, which is what New England didn't give Tom Brady. So Tom Brady, after winning a Super Bowl with with New England years ago, this isn't the Rams Super Bowl, so it's not the last Super Bowl he won. I'm pretty sure it was after the Atlanta Super Bowl. He asked the New England Patriots for a new contract, and they did not give him a new extension. They had Jimmy G behind him. They wanted to build and things like that. Aaron Rodgers is doing the same thing. He's pressuring the Green Bay Packers immediately right now to either commit to me, Aaron Rodgers, right now, or I'm going to leave. And I think what the Patriots did, which was not, back Tom Brady, not give him that huge contract extension that he wanted despite his age. He obviously went to Tampa Bay and found success. Now, Green Bay has an insurance policy in case Aaron Rodgers ever does leave, that being Jordan Love. But do you really want to let the man who just won an MVP and might have had the best season of his career last year walk out that door when you're already losing a top 5 running back in football and already losing a top 3 center in football? So you, the Green Bay Packers, need Aaron Rodgers now more than ever. And Aaron Rodgers knows that, which is why I think he's going to be asking to be paid the highest paid contract in NFL history. Not over years. I don't think he'll sign a 10-year deal like Patrick Mahomes did, but annual money each and every year. I think he's going to be asked to pay the most. Currently, the annual average for Dak Prescott is $40 million. For Aaron Rodgers, I believe it's $38 million. And for Patrick Mahomes, it is $45 million. I believe Aaron Rodgers is going to be asking for a 2 to 3 year contract extension worth upwards of $45 million a year to make him the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League. Again, it won't be the years that Patrick Mahomes has, but I think that's the path that Aaron Rodgers is going down to. And this is my problem with Aaron. He's made enough money. And I understand that professional athletes have every single right to ask for the max contract each and every year, just like LeBron James does, if they are that good. But football is not basketball. You can't win with just one guy. And like I said at the beginning of the show, there are many ways to win in the National Football League, but one of the most consistently proven ways to win in this league is to have a quarterback on the cheap. Have a quarterback on a team-friendly deal so you can use all of your cap space on pass rushers and weapons and offensive linemen to have that system around your quarterback. We saw how successful the Rams were with Jared Goff before they paid Jared Goff. How successful the Eagles were before they paid Carson Wentz. How successful a lot of these teams are when they have a quarterback on the cheap. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs won a Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes on the cheap as well while he won an MVP. Tom Brady has been taking pay cuts year after year, just restructured his contract again with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because he cares more about winning than money. Aaron, in my opinion, needs to... Again, it depends on what's Aaron Rodgers' priorities. If his priorities is to make the most amount of money possible during his NFL career, he has every right to do that. And in fact, I would encourage him to do that. I think all of these professional athletes should make the most amount of money they can. But as Aaron has said recently, in interviews, he cares about his legacy. He cares about awards. He cares about winning. And he doesn't have the Super Bowls that Tom Brady has. He doesn't have the Super Bowls that Peyton Manning has even to be considered one of the top 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time. And if you want to win Super Bowls, you need a team. And if you want to have a team, you need money. And if you want to have more money, you have to take less money, Aaron. And that's how this league works. That's what Tom Brady's doing. That's what Drew Brees just did. If he comes back, again, I think that's what Peyton Manning did the final years of his career. Aaron wants to be paid like LeBron gets paid. Each and every year, I am the best player in the world. Pay me like it. And that's fair. He has that right. And I don't blame him for asking like that. But basketball is different than football. If Aaron Rodgers wants to make the Super Bowl each and every year, he needs Aaron Jones on his team. He needs Corey Lindsey blocking for him. He needs Devontae Adams catching passes for him. And he needs more because he had all 3 of those things last year and they didn't even make the Super Bowl. So what does Aaron think losing Corey Lindsey, Aaron Jones, and getting more money for himself, how does that improve the team? How does that improve his legacy? How does that get him more awards? How does that get him another Super Bowl? I'm not sure, specifically with a franchise that doesn't draft historically great recently. I haven't had on a lot of draft picks. Again, A.J. Dillon, is he great? Who knows? He looks like he might be the feature back next year. Could they go after a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round? Javonte Williams, Michael Carter comes to name. Maybe, potentially. But at the end of the day, I don't see a true clear-cut path if Aaron does ask for all this money. Like I'm speculating again, this is not based off reports. This is not based off sources. This is just me recognizing a pattern. Green Bay is letting all of their free agents walk, not even tagging them, which means they need the money for something. And if I had to guess, Devontae Adams just got paid. Maybe it's for Alexander, maybe the cornerback. It could be for both of them. Again, maybe they need to sign him to a mega $1 million extension. But again, I think Aaron Rodgers is once again going to be asking for a re-up on his contract to become the highest paid quarterback in football. Again, that's just not what translates to winning, in my opinion. All right, transitioning here a little bit to free agency. I have a list here of some of the best free agents in the NFL coming out this year, and I want to give you my realistic / perfect fix / prediction on where I believe we'll go. So let's get right into that. So first off, we have the running back that I was just talking about, Aaron Jones. Now, he has obviously not been tagged by the Green Bay Packers. He will be hitting the open free agent market this year. And I personally believe the perfect fit for him and where I actually do believe he will end up going is the Miami Dolphins. I do believe that Tua Tagovailoa is going to be the quarterback in Miami for the foreseeable future. They recognize that they need a strong run game to help out their rookie quarterback and just need playmakers overall. Aaron Jones, 35 touchdowns in his last 34 games. Hand the man a blank check. Get a guy who can contribute in the pass game and the run game. So he's one of those running backs who can do a lot out of the backfield through passes, through screenplays, and things like that. And again, I don't think the Packers have enough money or really want to offer enough money to give him a contract that he's going to want. Again, due to the cap thing, I don't think Aaron Jones is going to get like $17, $18 million a year. I could see him getting 13 to 15. In my opinion, I bet Green Bay is offering him between 10 and 13. I bet he signs for $15 to $16 million a year in Miami. Makes a ton of sense for Tua Tagovailoa. They need a playmaker either out of the backfield or in the passing game. Aaron Jones provides both. They have a nice group of running backs, Savon Ahmed and Myles Gaskin, who I like as backups, but I wouldn't want them as my starters. Aaron Jones fills every single need they need in that backfield. Again, just 26 years old. Miami has the money. Just cut Kyle Van Noy today, actually officially, to save about $10 more million in cap space. They obviously are going to use the money for somebody. If I had to guess, I believe it will be Aaron Jones. Next up, another major free agent that is hitting the market is Kenny Golladay. He did not get tagged from the Detroit Lions, and in my opinion, he now becomes the number 1 wide receiver on the market due to Allen Robinson being tagged by the Chicago Bears. And I personally believe he's going to go to the New York Jets. I think the New York Jets obviously have a ton of money. I think a lot of guys are going to buy into Robert Saleh and everything like that. I believe they'll move off of Sam Darnold. I could see him getting traded to Chicago, to maybe San Francisco, maybe even Washington, and them going forward with Zach Wilson. And I think Kenny Golladay would be the perfect sort of star receiver to go to. Again, the Jets have a ton of money, second most in the league, only behind the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, hand Kenny Golladay that blank check, make him the number 1 wide receiver in New York. I could totally see that happening, and again, that's the perfect fit in my opinion. Got a nice, blend of size and speed. Kenny Golladay also has some injury concerns, which could make some teams be a little bit cautious. But if anybody's going to give him top dollar, it would be the New York Jets, and that's where I believe he will go. Next up, we have Chris Carson, who is the running back for the Seattle Seahawks, who obviously was not tagged by them. He is hitting the free agent market. I think the Buffalo Bills make a lot of sense. A lot of people have speculated that's where he will go. He's got some injury concerns, and the Bills don't need a spectacular run game to win each and every week. They're bringing back pretty much the same exact roster and coaching staff as last year. Add a guy like Chris Carson, a physical downhill back. He might miss 3 games a year, but if you're Buffalo, you'll live with that. You really want him for the playoffs and as many games as you can. If you got 10 to 13 games out of Chris Carson, I think it'd be worth it. I don't see him signing a long-term contract in Buffalo. I see him signing a 1 to 2 year deal so he can potentially get another big payday when, again, that TV money really clicks in and things like that, and he can prove that he's healthy. But I think it's a win-win situation. Don't be surprised at all if Chris Carson signs a 1 year, like $15 million deal to go play in Buffalo as Buffalo goes all in on a Super Bowl for Josh Allen and things like that. So I could totally see that happening as well. And the final free agent that I want to talk about, I will do a big free agency preview probably next week, but the final free agent that I want to talk about, these are just the big 4 that I have at least. Shaq Barrett did not get tagged by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My personal prediction for him is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, there have been rumors that obviously Tampa Bay can re-sign him, but after tagging Chris Godwin and giving Levante David the extension, I'm not sure where Shaq Barrett fits into the equation. He was a one-man wrecking crew during that Super Bowl and arguably could have been considered for Super Bowl MVP. I've heard a lot of names out there. Teams like the Dolphins, teams like the Jets. I think the Jaguars, this is the guy that they get. They keep Shaq Barrett in Florida. They get a dominant pass rusher, and they might make him the highest paid pass rusher in the league. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So I have him going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's going to do it for this segment. On the other side of this short break, I want to be giving you my top 10/12 list of the top 10 to 12 weapons in this year's NFL draft. Absolutely stacked offensive weapon draft class. We'll break down all of those great guys right after this short break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, I am your host, Alex Masford. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode and to be continuing to listen to the show. If you're a returning listener, we really do appreciate you. I just gave you a full breakdown on the Green Bay Packers money situation. Again, I really do believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to be looking for a re-up on his contract. Again, I wouldn't surprise her if a report came out soon. Again, this was just based off pure speculation on my part that Aaron's going to be wanting to be paid at least the second highest paid quarterback in the league type money. I think he'll want to pass Dak. And I think that's what they need the money for. It doesn't make a lot of sense to let Aaron Jones walk and Lindsey walk. Again, I understand that they might not have the cap space to bring them back, but to not tag and trade, just it's confusing to me, to say the least, unless they know that they have to use the money on somebody. My guess, Aaron Rodgers. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to let the situation play out and see how it goes. Again, free agency starts next week. The draft is a little over a month away in late April. And speaking of draft, I'd like to give you my top 10 offensive weapons in this year's draft class. I've done my top 5 quarterbacks. I've done my top 5 receivers. I will do my top 5 running backs at some point, and I'll do them for a lot of the positions. But this class is absolutely stacked with offensive talent, more than other years. From the receiver position, the running back position, to the tight end position, I want to give you my top 10 just pure offensive weapons in this year's draft class. So let's get right into it. And at 10, I have a 3-way tie. I usually have this at 10. Again, that's why I said before it's like a 10 to 12 to 13 list. But again, here's a 3-way tie for 10. I think that all of these guys are really great contributors, and you could argue that they're a top 10 weapon in this class. But I think there are 9 guys for sure ahead of all of them. And it's a 3-way tie between the wide receiver Elijah Moore out of Ole Miss, Brevin Jordan, the tight end out of the University of Miami, and Javonte Williams, the running back out of UNC. So I'll break down each of the 3 guys first. So Elijah Moore is a wide receiver out of Ole Miss. Again, a program that's had a lot of success, brought out A.J. Brown recently and DK Metcalf. I think Ole Miss is a wide receiver factory. He was the number one receiver on that team last year. Great ability with speed. I think he's got great hands. He's got good enough size to win those jump balls as well. Elijah Moore's going to be a playmaker at the next level, makes a lot of guys miss. And again, we've seen the success that guys like A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf have had coming out of that Ole Miss system. So I think that's going to help him rise up of draft boards. He's not going to go in the first round. He probably will go in the second round if I had to guess. Could fall to the third round. But as a day 2 pickup, he could be a really, really great receiver, sort of like a T. Higgins type guy who's going to come out of the second round, didn't get in that first round because of his talent, but still making immediate plays from day 1 in his rookie year. I really like Elijah Moore. Would love some teams that need some receiver help and some speed help to get him specifically on day 2 of the draft. And he is coming in as a tie for 10th in these top 10 weapon lists. Again, Brevin Jordan is another name to keep an eye on. He is probably, in my opinion, the second best tight end in this class, obviously behind Kyle Pitts, who I will get to. But Brevin Jordan really reminds me of a taller Deebo Samuel. He's versatile. He can catch. He's got really great ball carrier vision despite being a tight end. And he can break a lot of tackles. He does a lot of things after the catch that you love to see. He's not just a big physical jump ball guy. He can make some guys miss in the open field. You can run some end arounds with him. I'd love to see a guy like Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur get his hands on a guy like Brevin Jordan. I think you could play him in the backfield and have some really awesome specialty plays where you hand him the ball and let him run with it. Again, I think he's phenomenal after the catch. Reminds me of a taller, almost a little bit more powerful Deebo Samuel. I won't say he's as talented as a receiver, but as a tight end, I think he's just a tight end version of Deebo Samuel, and I could totally see some special packages of him getting end arounds and screens and things like that because he's a big man who moves well given his size, and he's really strong as well. And of course, the University of Miami is tight end university, so you know that guys come out of that program and produce well in the NFL. I would love to see a team, I don't know, again, Green Bay Packers, San Francisco was talking about maybe getting another tight end to back up Kittle. Maybe if, since they're going to lose Everett, maybe the Rams go in on him in the second or third round. He'd be a absolutely huge pickup for whatever team, and I really, really hope I get to see Brevin Jordan get paired with a awesome offensive sort of creative mind. And finally, for this 3-way tie at 10th place, I have Javonte Williams, the running back out of UNC. Now, I think he's almost as good as Travis Etienne out of Clemson. I think he's underrated, but he's a bigger, physical back. Reminds me a lot of Chris Carson, who's a current free agent this year, who I have going to the Bills. Keep an eye on the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one makes a lot of sense. I think Pittsburgh's also been linked to Najee Harris, but if they wanted to go maybe somebody else in the first round, maybe defense, maybe O-line, maybe, quarterback, who knows. In the second round, you want to get a guy like Javonte Williams, and who knows, maybe he even goes in the first round. I've seen some mocks of having him go in the first round. Reminds me a lot of Chris Carson, big physical back. If you want to watch some awesome highlights, look up Javonte Williams' highlights from versus the University of Miami this most recent college football season. You will see some of the most brutal trucks you have ever seen in college football. I'm a huge fan of his. Teams that need a running back, Dolphins, Jets, Steelers, anybody should be, looking at Javonte Williams. Reminds me a lot of Chris Carson, big physical downhill runner, old school style back is what I really like to see. And he doesn't have terrible hands. He can do some stuff out of the backfield. Obviously split time with Michael Carter, so he wasn't doing a lot of the third down plays. But Javonte Williams is a big, powerful back that I think could make a lot of teams happy. So that's my 3-way tie for 10. Now at 9, I have Travis Etienne, the running back out of Clemson. Now Travis Etienne, I think, is suffering from what we call prospect fatigue. When we've heard of a prospect for years and years now, we tend to sort of overanalyze and nitpick their games. We've seen this happen with Trevor Lawrence recently. We saw it happen with Justin Herbert last year. Travis Etienne falls in this category. Travis Etienne, in terms of a lot of people would have told you that he might have been the best running back in last year's draft class if he had come out because of the great year he had at Clemson, decided to stay at school, had a good year, pretty much on par for the last year he had at Clemson, but didn't do anything more, didn't do anything spectacular, didn't win any awards, things like that. So when you look at it, he's going to drop down. Of course, Najee Harris had the year that he had, Javonte Williams had the year that he had, and now you sort of have him instead of the clear-cut number 1 back like he might have been entering this season. I don't even think he's the clear-cut number 1, and he might not even be the clear-cut number 2, but he is for me personally. Reminds me a lot of Alvin Kamara. I don't know if he'll translate to the game like Alvin Kamara did, but what he can do out of the backfield with the passing game and his combination of size and speed reminds me a lot of Alvin Kamara. Similar body type, similar play style. Will he be Alvin Kamara 2.0? I'm not sure, but last year I remember a lot of people liked him out of the draft, including myself. We're pretty stunned that he came back to college for his senior season at Clemson. Hopefully he wanted to get that national championship with Trevor Lawrence. Never came into fruition, but at the end of the day, I still think he's going to go in the first round. Again, similar teams. Anybody looking for a running back could use Travis Etienne. And if he goes with a coach that has a really nice creative system that maybe uses some pass catching backs, a team like New England, things like that, Travis Etienne could flourish early. So he's coming in at number 9. Coming in at number 8 is Kadarius Toney, the wide receiver out of Florida. I've seen a lot of Percy Harvin comparison. He is a pure speed guy. He does some spectacular things with his feet, some spin move routes that I've seen on film. He's awesome. And again, if this was just a normal wide receiver class, he'd be way higher up on this board. But since this class is so special and so deep, it's just hard to put him above some guys like, of course, Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Rashod Bateman, Rondale Moore. But Kadarius Toney is not any consolation prize. He is a complete offensive weapon, and somebody should be targeting him in the draft. He could go in the first round. It wouldn't surprise me if he slipped into the early second round because of how stacked this class is. But again, I could see some team in the latter part of the first round taking a chance on him. Again, reminds me a lot of Hollywood Brown coming out of the draft. Reminds me a little bit of Antonio Brown. I do see the Percy Carbon comparisons because of his versatility. Not sure if he's as good as that. But still, Kadarius Toney is a playmaker for sure and could be right out of the draft. It could be a lot of fun to watch him his rookie year, and he's coming in at number 8. Coming in at number 7 is another wide receiver, Rondale Moore, who I obviously talked about when I gave you my top 5 wide receivers in this class. Again, reminds me of a more physical version of Tyreek Hill. And again, I see more Tyreek Hill and Rondale Moore than I do in Jalen Waddle. In fact, I see more Percy Harvin in Jalen Waddle than I see in Kadarius Toney. So if I had to make a pro comparison, I'd say Waddle is Percy Harvin and Rondale Moore is Tyreek Hill. The way that Rondale Moore plays the game of football just inspires me. He's 5'9", 181 pounds, can squat 600 pounds at the combine and in the weight room. He's a physical downhill player despite his size. He can also beat you over the top with his speed and make you miss. But if he is going to, get hit by you, he's going to make sure he brings the pop to you, lower his shoulder, drive you back another yard or two, and get those extra plays. He's not this super skinny, tiny wide receiver that's just going to catch the ball along the sidelines and run out of bounds. He's going to make guys miss. He's going to lower his shoulder. He's going to try to get extra yards, and he's a superstar in the making, in my opinion. I think he's one of 5 wide receivers, as I obviously talked about in my last show, that have the ability to be special types of players in this league, and obviously Rondale Moore is one of them out of Purdue. So much fun to watch on tape. Again, the standard teams that need a wide receiver should be all over this guy. I see more Tyreek Hill in him than Jalen Waddle, but I don't think he's as good as Waddle, which is why he comes in at 7 and Waddle comes in at 6 in this top 10 offensive weapons in this draft class list. Again, I see Percy Harvin, I see speed, I see a lot. Henry Ruggs' struggle to transition to the NFL does scare me a little bit about Waddle because they're a similar player, but I think Waddle is better. I think he's got better cuts, better vision, and can do more than Henry Ruggs. I could see Waddle also operating in the slot a little bit, taking slants instead of a 5-yard slant or a 10-yard slant, making it a 35-yard play or maybe even a 70-yard touchdown. He has that special type of ability that I'm not sure Henry Ruggs had coming out of last year's draft class. Either way, I love everything about Jalen Waddle, and I understand that this might be considered low because some people have him all the way up as maybe the best wide receiver in this draft class or second wide receiver in this draft class. But at the end of the day, I still think he's not as good as some of these other guys, and he comes in at number 6 on this offensive weapons list. Coming at number 5 is Rashod Bateman out of Minnesota. I told you he's my sleeper pick in this year's draft class. I mean, he's going to be a first rounder, but his combination of size and speed is second to nobody in this class besides maybe Kyle Pitts. I love everything about Rashod Bateman. He's not going to be the first wide receiver off the board, but keep an eye on the Giants at number 11. It wouldn't surprise me if they shocked the world and they took him at 11, a little bit higher than his projected 15 to 18 range. If he falls to 15, the New England Patriots should be all over this pick. If I had to say a pro comparison, I'd honestly say Kenny Golladay. Reminds me a lot of him, maybe a little bit of even of a more talented version. Again, apparently ran a sub 4.40, given his 6'2 size and stature is absolutely ridiculous. He's physical, he's fast, he's strong, he's athletic. He can go up and get that jump ball fades in the end zone too. Really, really love Rashod Bateman. I think a team's going to be really happy with him. And if I were Dave Gettleman with the Giants at 11, and obviously Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith both go in the top 10, I would take Rashod Bateman at 11 over a guy like Jalen Waddle, like I've seen them be mocked or having them mocked to him and things like that. But I really do believe Rashod Bateman's going to be a fantastic player. It reminds me of, I hate to say this, but Calvin Johnson light. He's not as tall or as fast as Calvin Johnson, but they play in a similar style, similar to Julio Jones. Again, he's not as big. He's not that 6'5", 6'6". But just from a play style standpoint, I see a little bit of some similarity. So he's coming in at number 5. Coming in at number 4, is my opinion, is the best running back in this year's draft class, Najee Harris. He reminds me of a smaller version of Derrick Henry, but with the pass-catching ability of an Alvin Kamara or something like that. He is the perfect running back prospect, in my opinion. 6'2", he's huge, can beat you. He's built like a linebacker, can beat you with the speed, can beat you with the power, and he's got hands and route running ability like a receiver. He is an all-around purpose running back. In my opinion, he is a top 10 talent in this draft. I don't think he will go top 10. Hell, I'm not sure he'll even go top 20. But he deserves that talent to be up there. And again, I think he's one of the better running back prospects to come out of the draft. We know Alabama guys produce. Keep an eye on the Miami Dolphins, who worked with him at the Senior Bowl. New York Jets. Again, all of those. Pittsburgh Steelers, I've been heard. That'd be a home run draft pick. He could change a running back room like that. Again, power, size, speed, catching, route running. He can even block in the backfield because of how big he is. He can block those blitzing linebackers coming straight through the C gap or A gap. Huge stuff from Najee Harris. I think he's an all-around perfect running back prospect, and he's the fourth best offensive weapon in this year's draft class. Coming in number 3, I have Devonta Smith, the wide receiver out of Alabama, obviously the Heisman Trophy winner. At the end of the day, I don't think he's the best pure receiver in this class. Obviously, you guys know it's Jamar Chase for me. But Devonta Smith can still be a superstar at the next level. Reminds me a lot of Marvin Harrison. Again, if he gets into the hands of a really creative offensive mind, hopefully the Jets, if they take him, potentially if a trade down situation. I've heard the Lions, potentially. I've heard Miami, obviously, at 3. Any team that needs a wide receiver is going to consider Devonta Smith. Had one of the best, if not the best, wide receiving seasons we've seen in college football history. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's the best pure offensive weapon in this class. I don't think you can forget what Jamar Chase did last year. And obviously, you guys will find out who my number 1 is here in a second. But Jamar Chase is still going to be Devonta Smith is still going to be a special player in this league. And I definitely think he goes top 10. Keep an eye on 6 with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that's a perfect fit. Number 2 is obviously Jamar Chase. I think he is a better version of Anquan Boldin, a faster version of Anquan Boldin, and I think he's a Hall of Fame type talent. And I think there's 2 guys in this year's draft class who are guaranteed, in my opinion, going to be studs. Penei Sewell, Trevor Lawrence, and also Kyle Pitts, who's obviously my number 1 weapon, who you hear in a second. Jamar Chase would be a close 4th out of a guy who I think is a guaranteed bona fide superstar in this NFL. Again, I just needed to make sure that he goes to the right team with the right quarterback. Obviously, receivers' whole game is dependent on their quarterback and system like that. Again, I think Miami takes him at 3. If I had to guess, I think he's the perfect fit for them. Size, speed, athleticism. He's 6'2", but can run faster than almost anybody else in this draft class not named. Maybe Rondale Moore and Jalen Waddle. I love everything about Jamar Chase's game. I wish he played this year, but again, we can't forget, he's sort of getting some recency bias here. We can't forget what he did that year with Joe Burrow. He before Devonta Smith had this year, it looked like Jamar Chase had the best year a wide receiver had ever had. We cannot forget about that. So I think Jamar Chase is the best wide receiver in this class and the second best offensive weapon in this class, only behind the superstar, in my opinion, Kyle Pitts, who I think is not only the best weapon in this draft class, I think he's the best player in this draft class. If I had to just give you my big board, I would give you Kyle Pitts 1, Trevor Lawrence 2, Penei Sewell 3. I think Kyle Pitts is the best player in this draft class. I think he will be a better version of Darren Waller, if you can believe it. And I mentioned the Calvin Johnson comparison earlier. Kyle Pitts reminds me a lot of Calvin Johnson. The size, the speed. I understand he's a tight end, but it doesn't matter when you play him the way you play him. He's listed as a tight end, but you can play him as a wide receiver. Nobody will know the difference. He is a superstar in the making, and I genuinely believe he will be a better version of Darren Waller. If the Dolphins took him at 3, that'd be huge. I could see the Jets taking him at 2 if they didn't want to move off of Sam Darnold. But keep an eye on teams like Carolina, Atlanta at 4, and the latter part of the top 10. Those are the guys who are going to be really going after Kyle Pitts. Is probably the Dolphins will most likely take a guy like Chase, who's more of a pure receiver. Even though if I were the Dolphins GM, I'd take Pitts for sure. All right, that's going to do it for this segment. On the other side of this final short break, I want to give you my quick reaction of the Blake Griffin signing to the Brooklyn Nets. What does it mean for Brooklyn? Are they title favorites because of this signing? And what could we expect from Blake Griffin? We'll get into all that great stuff right after this final short break.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network for the final segment of today's absolutely packed show. And for this final segment, I do want to give you guys a quick, short reaction to Blake Griffin signing that 1 year, I think $2.5 million contract with the Brooklyn Nets. Now, it was expected that after he was bought out by Detroit that he would want to go play for a contender, and he obviously chose to go play for Brooklyn. Now, the only reason why I didn't lead my show or anything with this is because I don't personally think Blake Griffin's going to make that much of an impact on this Brooklyn team. I don't see him having that major role. I don't see this doesn't become like a big four, in my opinion. This team is still KD, Kyrie, and Harden. Blake Griffin is a role player, is a bench player on this team, in my opinion. It wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't even get significant minutes. Again, we don't know where Blake is at. The last time we saw him was that playoff series with Detroit, I'm pretty sure, a little bit pre-COVID, but he was battling a ton of knee injuries and injuries just in general. Shooting three-point percentage, okay. It would be better if he was shooting that only on a couple of attempts, but he shoots a lot of high-volume threes for a guy that's not a great volume shooter. And again, his game was built off athleticism, which is clearly deteriorating because of his knees and things like that. Could he still give you a solid 10 points a night potentially off the bench? For sure. But is the Blake Griffin of Lob City coming back? LA Clipper resurrected Blake Griffin, and this is all of a sudden a big four? No, I don't think Blake Griffin's even necessarily going to be starting for this team. Again, I see him coming off the bench. As a spot up shooter guy, a guy that can go to work in the post a little bit. Again, we just have to see where Blake's body's at really physically and things like that. So at the end of the day, I'm not sure about the biggest impact that Blake Griffin will make, but at the end of the day, I think it will be significant. Again, I just want to touch on this really, really quickly. Going back to the Dak Prescott situation, I know I said that I was going to let you all go after this, but here's the thing. I don't think the signing of Dak Prescott, like some Cowboys are acting, immediately means that they're going to win the division next year. I sort of touched on it, but it's bugging me, so I want to get it off my chest. Why are people not excited about the Washington football team? This defense, in my opinion, is a top 3 defense in the league. It's one of the youngest defenses in the league. They have a solid offensive line, a decent run game, a great receiver in Terry McLaurin. This team's just missing a quarterback. Alex Smith, coming off of a horrific injury, went 5-1 as a starter for this team. Again, Dak Prescott didn't play a lot of games for the Dallas Cowboys last year, but the Washington football team still rolled them twice, including Thanksgiving in Dallas. If this team, Washington that is, can just get a quarterback, a serviceable quarterback, doesn't even have to be a quarterback at Dak Prescott's level, I still believe that Washington is the best team in that division, not Dallas. Keep an eye on Sam Darnold, keep an eye on even a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, maybe even through the draft, a guy like Marcus Mariota. Either way, if Washington can just get a serviceable quarterback that could perform at a higher level than Alex Smith did last season. Again, Alex Smith went 5-1. Taylor Heineke gave the Bucs a run for their money because of how good that defense was. This team just needs a quarterback. I think we're forgetting that the team that gave Tampa Bay the best football game in the playoffs wasn't Green Bay, wasn't Kansas City in the Super Bowl. It was the first round series against the Washington football team. That team gave the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the most fits and the most trouble in a playoff game. They just need that quarterback, and I think that team could take off. I don't think Dallas is going to win that division next year. If I had to pick right now, I think it would be Washington, despite the Dak contract and all of that great stuff. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast. Again, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Before I let you go, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a 5-star review, and follow us on all social media platforms. Again, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We would appreciate it if you would do all 3 of those things. Again, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I have been your host, Alex Masfer, and I will see you all in the next one.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.